Hello and welcome back to Learn Political Science. On today's video, we shall cover understanding normative and empirical theory. Under this, first we shall look into what is the difference between the two approaches. Then, we move on to the decline of normative theory. And finally, relation between normative and empirical theory. Alright, let's begin. In political theory, both ideals and reality and value and fact are included. So, one can safely say that there are two main approaches to the study of political theory, normative and empirical. Numerous political scientists have come to question the role of philosophical insights that provided the very foundation for political research. The advent of the behavioral turn in political science emphasized the role of science in the study of politics. So it led to thinkers like Peter Laslet in his Introduction to Philosophy, Politics and Society, 1956, to famously declare that political philosophy is dead, at least for the moment. Hence, the normative theory needed some sort of justification and explanation as to what its role and purpose might still be. Next, let's look at this first section, differences between normative and empirical theory. Normative theory. Political theories were dominated by philosophy. Great philosophers like Plato and Aristotle are great due to the vastness of their thinking in the field of work and subject. Normative theory believes in the ultimate good and considers political goodness to be part of it. It is more concerned with what should be, rather than what is happening. This emphasizes on the importance of values like freedom, justice, and equality. It is prescriptive as it establishes some standards of evaluation through which we can examine the drawbacks of an organization and suggest corrective measures. It is optimistic and imaginative in its approach, in the sense that it is concerned with finding the best stable form of ideal state and government. It is also based on assumptions that are some regulative concerns on which theories can be constructed. Next, we have empirical theory. It has cut off connection with philosophy and aims to study politics through scientific methods to collect measurable empirical evidence in an experiment related to hypotheses, example, making observation, collecting data, and more. It prefers a value-neutral approach to the subject and argues that the theory can be applied only to what is, not what ought to be. It is concerned with facts and seeks to examine politics in a way verifiable by facts. It is fact-laden. It concerns itself with objective behavior of man, finding its manifestation in the struggle for power for the sake of protecting and promoting his interests. The empirical theory remains largely descriptive, as it sets out to explain the way political phenomena work by exploring the ideas that shape and structure political processes, institutions, and practices. This theory is not only concerned with the study of state but also the study of political processes. On to the next section, decline of normative political theory. Now, having gone through the differences, in the aftermath of the Second World War, empirical scientific theory based on the political behavior of individuals was widely accepted. Normative theory, on the other hand, was criticized on the basis that there is no scientifically valid or reliable method of determining what is right or wrong. Hence, It is utopian and idealistic in its approach. Other thinkers, such as David Easton, in his Political System, An Inquiry into the State of Political Science, 1953, argued that the classical political theory was based on speculation. It was devoid of acute observation of political reality. Also, Alfred Cockburn, in his paper The Decline of Political Theory, 1953, asserted political theory has lost its significance in capitalist as well as communist systems. Some would say that, in consequence, a neat division of labor between the two camps is drawn. There are the philosophers who analyze political concepts in a formal manner, supposedly without introducing empirical evidence or evaluative presuppositions. Then there are the social scientists who sought to develop a new type of political theory, enabling them to classify and assess empirical data and formulate law-like generalizations concerning human. However, as Vernon Dykes puts it, although political theory is concerned with normative theory, it is an error to think of it as limited to normative. Indeed, political theory teaches, but it also describes and explains at the same time. It is normative, but it is narrative as well. It is explanatory and exploratory as well. It does talk ideologies, idealism, socialism, and liberalism, but it does explain their worldview. It is a technique of analysis. So, after looking at all the above differences, let us try and understand what is the relation between normative and empirical theory. It is believed that the differentiation between empirical and normative political theory is only analytical. There may not be any political theory which deals exclusively with is without an element of ought, and vice versa. What distinguishes normative political theory from empirical political theory is the proportion of what ought to be and what is present. In normative political theory, the element of what ought to be is more than what is, whereas in empirical political theory, it is vice versa. It is also possible that some works of a thinker may be more empirical than normative, while some other works of the same thinker may be more normative than empirical. For example, Karl Marx's analysis of 18th century European capitalism is more descriptive, empirical, and factual in nature, while his vision of a socialist and communist society is more normative, speculative, and prescriptive. Leo Strauss put another explanation about normative political theory and empirical political theory. He used the term political philosophy for normative political theory and political theory for empirical accounts of political reality. He has argued that political theory tells us only about the nature of political things, while political philosophy is a quest for wisdom. Also, according to Bhikkhu Parekh, political philosophy is the study of phenomenon which is political in a philosophic way, meaning a self-consciously critical investigation and interpretation of the incident, whereas empirical methodology is just a factual description of that incident. Hence, it is possible to arrive from the above points that an inclination towards normative theory does not necessarily mean refutation of the empirical approach. Quoting John Gehring and Joshua in conclusion, empirical study in the social sciences is meaningless if it has no normative import, While a normative argument without empirical support may be rhetorically persuasive or logically persuasive, but it will not have demonstrated anything about the world out there. Alright, before we end, let's have a quick review to what we have already covered. Political theory was predominantly normative until the mid 20th century when scientific research came into the picture. Most American political scientists began to proclaim the decline of normative theory, but, as stated above, normative and empirical cannot be classified or separated strictly into two camps. They are in fact mutually dependent. Classical political theory was a predecessor of political science, and for many centuries, political theorizing had been mainly a normative character, but it was often a response to a certain empirical context. So, that was an insight to understanding normative empirical political theory. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video was of help. Keep following us for more educational videos. Goodbye.